Rancy, you have been involved in the international affairs for many years, and actually, thanks to your network and your engagement, the democratic movement in Cambodia does have traction and does have support, sympathy, and actually people who are ready to stand behind you and behind the Democrats and freedom fighters of Cambodia. What do you think should be the next step of the international community? We saw the resolution of the European Parliament adopted yesterday, and we also have seen the Americans taking an action saying that some people should be blacklisted. What is it that you suggest in terms of strong international response?
First, I think and I beg all our friends never to recognize fait accompli. Fait accompli that are violations of basic human rights, basic democratic principle, and violation of our conscience. Powerful countries such as Russia, China, they like to impose fait accompli. And unfortunately, the free world cannot resist and finally accept fait accompli. But coming from a small dictator, from a small country like Hun Sen, we should not accept his fait accompli. China can impose the Tibet annexion, can impose Xinjiang and the Uyghur, can impose the Hong Kong violation of human rights. But Hun Sen should not be allowed to impose as fait accompli the assassination of democracy. Because Cambodia is very dependent on the international community. Cambodia is not Russia. Cambodia is not China. Hun Sen is not Putin. Hun Sen is not Xi Jinping. So when we have the means to deal with dictatorship, especially with small dictatorship, we should not treat them as the big dictators. It is there that you can save the principle. That maybe you have abandoned some principle when you have to deal with China and with Russia, but never, not with Hun Sen. At least you stand firm and you show that something is still alive, that your conscience is still alive regarding serious human rights violation. This is the first point. Second point, be careful because modern time dictators are very clever. They can window dress, they can organize a thing to maintain the appearance of democracy. They say we still have election, even in Burma. Burma, they said after the arrest of Aung San Suu Kyi, the killing, they said we will organize another election in 1 year time. But they specify that the new election, they will organize their own way. And what they will do in between, they will dissolve the opposition party. The only credible opposition party led by Aung San Suu Kyi, they will dissolve it before organizing the next election. Then they will secure a landslide victory. Hun Sen is doing the same. Actually, the Burmese junta and the Hun Sen, they are helping each other. They experiment the same formula. Hun Sen, he dissolved the opposition party first, and he organized fake election later. And this allowed him to secure 100% of the seats at the parliament. And the Burmese junta, they want to do the same. It is why I said what Hun Sen did is a soft coup d'etat. It's a kind of daily coup d'etat. They don't call it coup d'etat, but it is a coup d'etat when you dissolve the only opposition in parliament. So you kill democracy. There is no more checks and balance. Then Hun Sen can do whatever he wants, can seize all powers, can silence all critics. This is a coup d'etat. Without saying coup d'etat, it is a coup d'etat. So I urge you to treat the Burmese case and the Cambodian case in the same way. But Cambodia is even easier to deal with than Burma. One, Cambodia, we have an international treaty called the Paris Agreement on Cambodia, signed in 1991. France signed immediately, the UK signed immediately, but 3 European countries signed a few years later, Germany, the Netherlands, and Poland. What does it mean? It means that those signatories, they committed themselves to defend democracy and human rights in Cambodia. It is not their right, only their right, but it's also their obligation to defend human rights and democracy in Cambodia. Now Hun Sen have assassinated democracy and violated human rights. It is not only your right, but your obligation. But in case of Burma, you don't have such an international treaty. It's difficult to find a legal ground, to intervene, but it is as a matter of principle. But in Cambodia, you have a legal ground to do so. First point. Second point, whereas Burma has been used to live in autarky, Burma has not relied on international assistance for decades. They live alone in autarky. But Cambodia cannot survive without international assistance. Since the UN intervened after the Paris Peace Accord in 1991, I was a finance minister at the beginning. I know how dependent Cambodia is on international assistance. Therefore, the international community has leveraged on Cambodia through the economic and financial assistance that they don't have, as is the case for Burma. So with these two differences, I think not only you are entitled, but you are equipped to intervene in Cambodia by never accepting fait accompli imposed by Hun Sen. Now, what are the most effective ways? They are contained in the European Parliament resolution, the targeted sanction based on Magnitsky Act. It will be very effective because those tyrants, they don't care. When the people suffer, the population suffer, they don't care. They hold the population as hostage. But when their interests are hurt directly, then they will care. Therefore, the sanction to freeze their assets abroad be very effective, to not allow them to come to democratic countries, to Europe, to the US, to Australia, to set foot on those countries where they have sent their family, their children to go to study, where they like to go shopping, where they go to have a medical treatment, they have bought a lot of properties. They are used now to this comfort because they know that the situation in Cambodia will not last forever. They take the opportunity to hold on power, to squeeze the country and to send money abroad to prepare for their retirement. But send them the message, no way. You can go retired to come to Europe, to the US, to Australia. You have to be accountable for what you have done recently. So you will be sanctioned if you don't go back to the situation before, you don't restore the opposition, you don't free political prisoners, you don't organize a free and fair, credible election. These are legitimate demands. It is not intervention or whatsoever. It is fulfilling the obligation that Cambodia has accepted itself. So again, thank you for considering this and thank you for pushing for the implementation of the personal and the targeted sanctions against dictators in Cambodia, but dictators all over the world.